Listen up, commuters. You may want to find an alternative route for your drive to work. Starting tomorrow, John Nolen Drive is expected to be under construction till the end of December. Let's bring in NBC 15's Cameron Kelly. Cameron, that busy road will go down to one lane in both directions for several weeks.
The city of Madison is working on multiple projects within the Monona Terrace Tunnel. City officials say to expect congestion, particularly during rush hour. All this to last up to 6 weeks.
Definitely goes down to one lane. That's going to put another 10 or so probably minutes on the commute, if not more, I would assume.
Bright and early on Monday morning, the city of Madison will begin to replace water pipes and fire alarms within the Monona Terrace Tunnel. John Nolen Drive will go down to one lane in both directions for several weeks.
We purposely scheduled it so that it would start after all the other street reconstruction projects in the area completed.
With southern Wisconsin already seeing its first snowfall, city officials do not believe weather will hinder construction.
A good thing about doing this project when we're doing it is that the contractor has more crews available this time of year to do it because there's not a lot of other stuff going on.
Ahead of the weeks-long project, husband and wife Ben and Jackie are planning alternative routes to work.
Other avenues to get there, whether or not that's taken Park Street or Regent Street.
Both commuting on John Nolen multiple times a week.
Leaving earlier if I can. Maybe that means like stopping at a gym before work.
Concerned about constant traffic, Jackie wonders if commuters will consider other options.
Maybe our public transportation will be more popular during this time. I don't know if there's any consideration of like lowering fare or like advertising bus options.
Meanwhile, Ben will hit the road with new ways to fill the extra time.
Maybe we'll get into a new book or a new story or something like that.
And there is some good news. South Broome Street and West Wilson Street reopened at the end of last week, and the John Nolen project will begin tomorrow morning at 6. We also sent you some more details on the construction on our news app. Live in the studio, Cameron Kelly, NBC 15 News.